the battle between Superman and the Fantastic Four First Steps is going to be, I think, the battle of the summer for the box office.
Definitely, yeah.
Right? Yeah. I mean, of course, they are trying to, people on social media trying to get, one film to not be seen, or if they're part of the subgenre, like with Superman and the Man of Steel, Snyderverse, like people in the Snyderverse don't want people to see this one and things like that. And then Marvel against Marvel, where those Marvel fans who are like searching and still feeling that high from Endgame are still looking for that, and they keep hating on it every single time a new movie out, like we've been talking about. So it's very interesting too, because these two franchises, I should say, the Superman franchise and the Fantastic Four franchise, have actually followed each other throughout history. And the box office success of both of them, or just the overall critical success of both of them, has been very lukewarm over the past, forever, I would say.
Except for the
At least,
first except for the first two original Supermen, which were at the time some of the biggest moneymakers in box office history.
well, yeah, but I mean, that was also like 5 decades ago.
No,
But
but like you said,
yeah,
recently it's been a toss up whether they do well or not.
right,
But
exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like both of these films have let audiences down for so long. At least, I mean, it's been what, the mid 2000s since that first Fantastic Four, the one that came out that was okay. And then, I mean, people liked Roth's interpretation of Superman and Superman Returns, but the film was not that great. And I mean, people were mixed reviews on Man of Steel. But I thought the funny thing was a lot of people think that Superman is going to do better than Fantastic Four and bring in more money, which looks good for your box office draft, that's for sure. And people are saying that because Warner Brothers Discovery's trailer for Superman garnered about 24 million views in the first 24 hours. And then Fantastic Four's trailer for the first steps garnered about 21 million views. So people are thinking Superman is going to do better than Fantastic Four. And it's very interesting. I think more the curiosity thing. I think that'll probably draw more people
and
in.
there wasn't it's very interesting because the launch of those trailers were very different. It was
They were.
kind of James Gunn just on social media, not even a video, not any like trailer drops tomorrow, and they did the standard what we're used to now, the little teaser trailer of the trailer, right? But Fantastic Four First Steps, they went live and had the entire cast at a NASA facility, and they made a big huge event of the launch of the trailer, and it came in under what the very subdued, hey, we're doing a Superman trailer tomorrow, compared to the big whole cast announcing this big live event. But I think that the reason Superman is going to do well, and I think it's going to track above those numbers. These are early predictions. They're talking about between 154 and 175 million on the opening weekend. I think that's going to be on the low end. I think it's going to be closer to 200 million. And I think the reason why is because we say this all the time. If it ain't broken, don't fix it. If you look at every single piece of video that's come out from that film so far, every trailer that's come out from that film so far, it is jam-packed with Christopher Reeve's Superman stuff. From the score to the way the costume looks, to the voice that Corin Sweat is switching back and forth from, it's because James Gunn was a fan of Superman and a fan of the Christopher Reeve Superman, and he is bringing the franchise back to that. Back to what the granddaddy of all of the superhero films try to live up to. And that, in my opinion, is a very smart move. It's what made it successful in the first place. And Gunn is smart enough to know that that's what people want. And so the idea that these people are out there, oh my God, it's going to be too campy. He's friendly. And like, no, Superman has always been that. He's the big blue Boy Scout. He's the beacon of hope. He's the guy that will always be good no matter what. That was Superman from the fucking get-go. From Action Comics #1, from the debut. That is who he is. So the idea that people are trying to tear it down because that's what this movie is going to represent is fucking absurd. The character is almost 100 years old, and he was always meant to be that guy. Like, the Snyderverse is the one that changed it. He's always been that guy. So this idea that they are tearing it down because he's too friendly is absurd to me. Like, I just don't get that. It makes no sense. It's just hate to hate and no other reason. Literally.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely sounds that way, but yeah, the comparison of both films, with them being so very mixed reviewed, it's always interesting because they keep going back to the well for both of these films because both of these established IPs have potential to be very freaking successful. Right? I mean, Pedro Pascal, he is an it guy right now, but I wouldn't necessarily call him a movie star. He's definitely a big television star, but he's not necessarily the biggest box office draw, in my opinion, just because we haven't seen that type of thing from him at the box office before with previous films. But it's interesting because the Man of Steel film came out in 2013, and then the recent Fantastic Four film came out in 2015. So about 12 years difference between, what is happening now to what it was back then. That was another either mildly successful film or a absolute bomb, god awful atrocity.
Fantastic
So
Four.
to think that hopefully, because both of these films deserve success, right? Both of these freaking films deserve to be successful in their own universes because a lot is riding on both of them, to be honest. Because with things slowing down at Marvel, I mean, Disney is about to do another round of layoffs, not necessarily at Marvel, but just in general. They need that film to be successful moving forward, and they need to be better about picking small stories, or better about picking stories that I feel like will resonate with current day audiences, like we've been talking about. But then Superman, I feel like Superman has DC has a whole lot more writing and a whole lot more risk taking than Marvel's Fantastic Four because they need this to work really freaking bad.
Yeah, it's
Because if Fantastic Four First Steps doesn't work or opens up mildly, Marvel's going to keep going. They have films still planned out. They're going to say, just wait until Secret Wars, wait till Doomsday, everything's going to be fine. But Superman and DC, if these don't do well, they might completely wipe the slate clean again. At least give James Gunn a few more films like Supergirl and a couple of other ones. I mean, Peacemaker season 2 and things like that. But I could really see them teeter-tottering back and forth to where they do another wipe the slate clean and do
I
independent things like Robert Pattinson's Batman moving forward.
I think that is more correct. I don't even
Yeah.
think if Superman fails, I don't even think Supergirl gets released, even though it's already being shot. I don't think
Yeah.
it gets released. I think that would definitively be the end of Gunn's DCU, and they would have to start over. Let's just be honest about it. James Gunn's Superman is Robert Downey Jr. and Jon Favreau's 2008 Iron Man. It is the film that will launch or not launch the universe.
Yeah.
And it was a huge chance with Marvel taking a lesser known character of Iron Man with a washed up actor at that time who was pretty much written off because of his personal problems. It was a big chance. And this Superman is that same film on the DC side. This will either work and launch it or it will fail and kill it. And I think it's going to work and launch it, but there's always that chance. I will say what I think they both did well, because you brought it up with Pedro, and even Pedro was surprised by his casting. He just recently said that. He's like, even I don't know why I was like, me? You want me? I'm like, exactly,
He's so
Pedro.
humble. He's
But
so humble.
here's the thing. The reason, in my opinion, that Superman, the original Superman, worked, the reason that I think that the early Marvel movies worked is because they did do casting like this. Like, if you look at the entire Fantastic Four, how many people actually know Vanessa Kirby? If
Yeah,
you didn't watch The
exactly.
Crown, who knows Vanessa Kirby, right? You had to have watched The Crown to even have a idea of who she was.
Yeah, it's just like the same thing with Eben
Eben,
and
and
other dude. You
that's
know,
my
if you
point.
haven't watched Stranger Things, you don't know what's his face,
And
and if you haven't watched The Bear, you don't know Eben.
exactly. And so I think that, and the same thing with David Cornsweet, right? And
Yeah,
apparently we're hearing Rachel Brosnahan, although I find that one hard to believe. But the
right. Yeah.
majority of the people in Superman are either lesser known or completely unknown to the public. And I
Hmm.
think that is where you find success, because then you don't go in focusing on them. You focus on the character. You
Yeah.
focus on Superman. You focus on Lois Lane. You focus on Reed Richards. That is what made the granddaddy of them all successful. Nobody knew who Christopher Reeve was. He was a stage actor, and not even a really good stage actor, apparently, at least based on early reviews, because as we find out, he's a Juilliard trained and he was a brilliant actor. But not a lot of people knew that. And so, and then his performance, obviously, the rest is history. I mean, that's the superhero, not just the people who are trying to play Superman after him, but all these people playing any superhero try to live up to him. And it worked because we didn't know who he was. And so I think that they're doing it well with the casting of both the Fantastic Four and Superman. The other thing I will say is, and they just recently came out with a couple articles about this, Feige has said, and the director of the Fantastic Four has said, they are going to embrace what the other Fantastic Four movies did not, and that is the camp in Fantastic Four.
Mm-hmm.
Reed Richards is the smartest, most brilliant man in the MCU. There's a lot of technology, there's a lot of big words, there's a lot of action, there's a lot of really sophisticated but it was also fucking campy as hell. They had goofy ass jokes, the back and forth dialogue and ribbing between Human Torch and Thing, the constant kind of stuff. Herbie in itself is ludicrous, but that's what made the Fantastic Four comic book work. Is it was this brilliant guy who was also campy as hell. And so they are going to embrace that in this movie, apparently. That they said they were not going to shy away from that, and you will see that element in this film, and in which you haven't seen in the other films. I think that's a great idea. I think that that's a smart move.
Especially with you and not like telling the audience anything different, because even when you watch the trailers of the Fantastic Four, it looks campy. You know, it doesn't look like it's going to be your Marvel explosions, like your big crazy fight sequences, right? It looks like that. And I feel like that is good because when you market it properly, instead of showing, for example, Superman Returns, when dude gets shot in the eye and it's that slow mo
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
bullet coming off and you think it's going to be action packed. So I think if you market it correctly and not lie to your fans about what it is, then they go in expecting what you're giving them instead of expecting something else that ends up in disappointment. Because, again, like we've been talking about this whole episode, when you do that, that's when the fans, that's when the haters, that's when the TikTokers will come after the film. So I think overall they're marketing this film great.
I think so too. And I think it's time to lay down with all the back and forth, guys. You know what? When James Gunn was brought on to take over and create DC Studios and the new DCU, the first phone call he made was to Kevin Feige.
Mm.
They are friends. They rely on each other for advice. They like I was saying at the top of the show, there's no way they didn't have a conversation about, you want 1 week, you want 2 weeks, how far should we gap these movies out to be successful for both of us, blah, 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 blah. And they both came up under Richard Donner and people who worked on the original Superman film. That's how they guide their whole thing. Remember, Feige said early on in the Marvel Universe, before any movie was made, they had to watch Superman. They all sat together and watched Superman. So this is where these two guys come from. So the idea that you're pitting them against each other and wanting the other to fail is ridiculous. They want each other to succeed because the more the one succeeds, the other succeeds. And my last thing with the Snyderverse people, it's okay to like both. I didn't. Christopher Reeve is always going to be my Superman. That is what I hold the standard to be. But I didn't dislike the darker version that Snyder gave us. I didn't mind that he snapped Zod's neck. He had no choice, and how he was grappling with. There's room for both interpretations.
Exactly.
You don't
It's
have
just like
to
our
hate
Batman
each other.
debate. Just because I prefer one, you prefer the other, doesn't mean I don't like Michael Keaton's Batman or you don't like Christian Bale's
No,
Batman. Like, I
exactly.
mean, they're both great.
They're both
Like,
great. And fuck, there's a whole plethora of people still out there that love Adam West's campy ass Batman.
yeah.
And
Like,
that's okay too. Adam West's Batman running around all goofy with big bombs, and dark as hell Tim Burton's Batman and Christian Bale's Batman, both are okay. And so,
exactly.
I mean, you gotta get over this hate of like, and I like Hockland's version of Superman. I think him and Bitsy Tulloch's Superman and Lois are the best on-screen duo of that couple to ever be done, including the Christopher Reeve Margot Kidder or the Henry Cavill Amy Adams or the Terry Hatcher and Dean Cain. I think them together are the best Superman and Lois ever. That doesn't mean that I don't think Christopher Reeve is still the best Superman. It just simply means that I'm okay with someone else playing him, and maybe the idea that his portrayal of Superman and her portrayal of Lois together makes the best portrayal of these characters. This hate has to stop. And maybe this is the comic book fan in me. I don't know, because I know you didn't come up reading comic, not a giant comic book fan or whatever, but every time a writer or an artist would shift on a book, they changed. The new storyline, you'd go from a storyline where it was a more upbeat kind of like, detective solving Batman to a hard, dark, I'm whooping your ass Batman. The costume would change from black back to the blue and gray or it's if you're a comic book fan, there's just different versions all the time, and it's okay. So just stop.
well, that's funny. That brings up the point of our comic book fans more accepting and more willing of change rather than movie fans more accepting, willing to change. I feel like comic book fans are probably more accepting and willing because moviegoers, they don't really look at the director. They don't look at the writer. They
It's true.
don't look at who's running the ship and moving it forward towards, that big Titanic iceberg.
Right.
But I feel like comic book fans, they notice all of this different stuff. They notice when the illustration's different. They notice when Batman says a certain thing a certain way.
Right.
Or, just the whole approach to the graphic novel. So I definitely feel like, moviegoers are less invested on what it actually is, and comic book fans are more willing and accepting to change. So yeah, it's very interesting though, because you get a lot of crosses, but you don't get a lot of like love when it comes to changes like that.
And I will say, as a lifelong comic book fan and superhero fan and a cinephile and lifelong movie fan, the one thing that drives me absolutely insane is when it's strictly the movie person and they're making comments that they have like they're spewing hate on something that they have no idea why. Like I can't tell you, like when we saw the first little glimpse of Silver Surfer. That's not even fucking right. Silver Surfer's a dude. They're fucking it all up. It's gender swapping. It's gonna be Newsflash, there's a female Silver Surfer, and if you were a comic book fan, you'd know that. Like, so, if you are not a comic book fan and you are strictly only going off of the movies, don't bash it if you don't know what you're talking about. Typically, these studios are not just throwing shit into the movie to make it different. It's coming from a source at some point. We didn't just decide to have a female Silver Surfer kind of a thing. So, educate yourselves before you just make stupid ass comments that you know nothing about. I can get it if you're coming at in one movie, and if you're only a movie fan, I can get it if in one movie a character was one way and then in another movie a character was another way. Then you're getting mad. Well, wait a minute, that's not right. But don't spew on something that you don't even know if it's true or not. Like I sort of got, but didn't get the initial hate with MJ, with Zendaya. It's like, wait a minute, she's supposed to be white with red hair. Now she's black and blonde. It's like, okay, if you're only coming at it from the movie standpoint, I can see that confusion, right? But now they've long been saying that Zendaya's MJ might not even be Mary Jane. It's like it might have never been Mary Jane. And maybe Sadie coming in is the real Mary Jane, white with red hair. I don't know. But my point is I get it if you're only coming from the movie and that type of a thing confuses you. But if you're only coming from the movie and it's a comic book change that you know nothing about, you sound like an idiot when you're screaming at the screen something that's just not even accurate.
Completely agree. And we're at a day and age and time where we're so open-minded about some things, but still it's like it's transitioned or like shifted to where we're so closed-minded about some things. So I guess that's how the world works. That's how it all evolves. And, you just got to step out of the fire because, life can be crazy and the entertainment industry can be crazy.
Are the racists fired up? Did you see the news today? Marvel Comics introduced a white Black Panther. Oh, fuck! Oh, shit! Black Panther's supposed to be black! What the fuck? There's a white Black Panther. Go look it up. Oh, shit. So if you see... I'm just saying, 5 years from now, if you see a white Black Panther on the screen, don't freak the fuck out!
I'd go on record and say that would probably never happen theatrically. I feel like I don't feel like that would probably happen.
Well, I think a lot of people thought it was never going to happen in the comic books, and yet here we are. So I don't know.
Here we are, man. Here we are.